Joining us right now, Attorney General of the Great Republic of Texas, Ken Paxton. It's good to see you, sir. I have to ask you first and foremost, I just saw some video of the Sergeant at Arms going around the Capitol there and handing out warrants to everyone. So it's like worksheet day, basically. Give us the latest as to what's happening with the Democrats who fled the state and didn't do their jobs.
Yeah, so kind of oddly, they filed for a temporary restraining order just the other day, and the judge granted their temporary restraining order, which meant that the Speaker of the House, the governor, could not execute any warrants. It made no sense, and so we ended up responding at 10:30 at night. By the next morning, the Supreme Court responded. It's called a mandamus, and they overrode that TRO. So now the Speaker and the governor can act under their constitutional authorities. Instead, they were being blocked by a judge. So that's all happening now. They're giving them the warrants, and they're required to come. If they're not, they can be detained and brought in.
Ooh, and this is now we're in the second special session to get this done, and I have a feeling that these special sessions are going to continue happening until the job is actually done for Texas voters.
Yeah, and actually, we had a regular session when this should have been done, but they walked out on that as well. Then they walked out on the special session, and so it's a shame because other legislators, the majority of them, have real lives. They're only getting paid $600 a month to do this as a salary, and they can't go back to their jobs. They can't go back to their families. And it's just a minority that's controlling the majority. That's not the way a democracy is supposed to work.
Right. And explain to people, we're talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, some people who may not live in Texas or who may not have ever seen anything like this happen before, although it has happened in Texas actually before. I mean, the governor, y'all have the authority to actually to compel Democrats in the state legislature to come back in and finish out their job, finish out their term, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And one of the ways they've evaded that, this happened in 2003 when I was in the House, they go out of state because our jurisdiction lines cross the state. So that they try to avoid being served or arrested by leaving the state. Yes, the governor has the authority to have DPS or any other law enforcement officer arrest them, not like they're going to jail, but just to bring them back to do their duty. And the speaker has to put the call on them. And he has done that. And I think he's done that appropriately.
And what happens if because I know not everyone has returned to Texas. As I understand it, weren't some vacationing in the Caribbean somewhere, I think just last week?
Well, there were some, I think, in Portugal, in Europe, a few others in the Caribbean. So, yeah, some of them had scheduled vacations and they didn't want to miss them. So they made it part of their whole theme of, we're just here to protect the vote. But we might have already had a vacation scheduled in Europe.
How nice. How nice is that? I can imagine everybody, we would all get fired from our jobs if we did that, but apparently they have that Democrat privilege. So if they do not return, then what is the recourse? What's the plan?
So, I mean, we have to have a quorum. They can always come back when they finally get a quorum. They can change the rules to make a quorum a majority. I think they should, because it's ridiculous that a third of the members can hold up the majority from doing what they want to do. So I think maybe the rules should be changed, but the reality is until they get a quorum, they can't do anything. That's the law, and we all have to follow the law, other than the Democrats who seem to think that the law doesn't apply to them.
I keep seeing a video of the House Sergeant at Arms there delivering the civil arrest warrants to offices of House Democrats who are breaking quorum. We're talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on this. On another legal issue as well, sir, the Dallas County judge, and I've been, as I said earlier, been affectionately referring to him as Leroy Jenkins on purpose, but Clay Jenkins suing Governor Greg Abbott over the non-mandate for masks, because apparently we have people, not just in Texas but elsewhere, that think a ban on mandating masks means a ban on wearing masks, which isn't the same thing. Talk to us about this attempt by Jenkins to try to stop the governor's refusal to make everyone wear face coverings.
Well, one of the things that he doesn't understand is that he can't just make up laws and change laws that he doesn't like. It's a democracy. We have representative government. These statutes, the Disaster Act, was put in place by the legislature that are elected from the entire state. They gave the governor the power during a disaster to make executive orders just like he made on masks. And Clay Jenkins doesn't like it. And so he says, I should be the determiner for the whole county, not the legislature, not the law, not the governor. I get to decide. I am the ruler of this area. Nobody else can tell me what to do. That's effectively what he's saying, because I don't have to follow the laws because I don't like them. So I'm doing my own thing. The reality is he's going to lose. He may get a liberal judge in Dallas County. He gets liberal judges in Dallas County to rule in his favor. But ultimately, I think we have a Texas Supreme Court that will follow the law they have in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine something like this even standing. I understand there are two judges that have done this now, but because you have Jenkins and then you have Judge Tanya Parker who made that determination and ruled that Jenkins should be allowed to implement some of these strategies like mask mandates. But if I mean, I would just think, and I realize that there's a legal process. When do you expect the Texas Supreme Court to weigh in on this issue?
So we're going through the process. We went through this, like an example, we went through this with Mayor Adler in Austin. He tried to pull a fast one right at the end of last year. I don't know if you remember this, where he tried to limit the hours of restaurants and bars outside of what the governor had said they can stay open. And we filed we asked for immediate relief. We lost in Travis County. We typically lose in Travis County. We lost to the Court of Appeals. We typically lose to the Court of Appeals in Austin. And we got to the Supreme Court in like a day and a half. So I don't know if this will go as fast, but typically on temporary restraining orders, we get much quicker response. And so I'm hopeful by the end of the week, or at least early next week, we'll have a response from the Texas Supreme Court. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm pretty confident we're going to win that.
And if they have, and we're talking with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, if they're, and I don't know, I haven't read about any kind of fines or penalties associated with this temporary, I guess, stop of a mask mandate. And if this is something that judges like or people like Jenkins and others decide to implement, and there are fines or penalties accrued because of this, what does that do to those people who are caught in this unconstitutional mandate? Not just with the Republic of Texas. What is there? How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're enforceable. So, I mean, he can put all the fines he wants on them, but eventually they're going to be struck down. And I don't think it's going to take that long. So I don't think they're enforceable. I don't think he's ever going to be able to get a fine out of everybody or put them in jail. I think he might want to put some of them in jail. It's not going to happen. It's not going to stand up.
We're talking to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Sir, one last subject for you here, because I know it's been a busy day. I saw you on Fox just earlier this morning. You've been everywhere talking to everybody. This the situation at the border, obviously, it's very interesting how we have the administration, the Biden administration, saying that they want to mitigate the transmission of coronavirus, et cetera, yet there really isn't a lot done to, not at least from the federal level. There's really not a lot being done at the border. I know that the Attorney General Merrick Garland has already sued Greg Abbott and the Republic of Texas and all of you because of the stop on transporting illegal entrants across elsewhere in the state. We've talked to Democrat lawmakers at the border who say that yes, not everyone's being tested, not everyone is being quarantined. But here's another thing that I'm worried about, and I wanted to get your perspective on this. We've reached out to the Texas Department of Health to try to figure out whether or not these COVID positive illegal entrants, if those numbers are actually being added with everyone else's to county totals. And basically the Texas Department of Health, they said, well, if they're in federal custody, then yes, they are. So that's kind of the answer. And when you look at all of these from eviction moratoriums and everything else being triggered by increased transmission rates, how can we handle that and stop that?
So I have several lawsuits against the president who I have no respect for on this issue anymore. He's lecturing us about masks and vaccines and rules for the rest of us, and yet he has openly opened the border to people that he knows have COVID. He knows it. He's a super spreader. The president is the largest super spreader, the most prolific super spreader of COVID maybe in the world. And I can give you an example. I just talked to the Dallas police the other day, and they watched 2 busloads come in the middle of the night just the other day, unloaded, and these people just disappeared into the night to go wherever they wanted with whatever COVID they had. And to me, that's completely irresponsible for the president to openly allow it, knowing it's going to happen, knowing that people are going to die. He's okay with it. Yeah,
okay with it, and apparently not giving lawmakers in states and border states particularly the leeway that, I mean, their authority, they have that authority as a individual state to be able to keep their citizens safe. But yet it seems like every time anybody tries to do that, then there's the AG, you have Merrick Garland at DOJ who's threatening to sue everybody.
Well, and that's exactly right. The governor responded, I think, appropriate, Governor Abbott, by trying to send these people back when they weren't being transported by law enforcement, which means that it seems like they're being transported illegally.
Taxpayer dollars.
Yes, and so he tried to stop that. Now we're being sued because Merrick Garland says, look, we're not going to enforce federal law. We're required to enforce federal law and keep these people out. We're ignoring our federal constitutional duty. We're just not going to do it. And because we're ignoring the law, we're not even going to let you, Governor Abbott, protect the people of your state from COVID, from crime. You can't do it because we're not doing it. It makes no sense.
Yeah. I wanted to get, I have one other question after this. It kind of is in the weeds, but I'm fascinated to get your perspective on it. We're talking with Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas. The numbers being added, illegal entrance numbers being added to those of Texas voters, is that troublesome? And what can we do to make sure that there's a clear differentiation between positive cases of illegal entrance and then obvious, Texas residents in Hidalgo County and elsewhere along the border?
So is your question, you're worried about them becoming voters?
No, worried about those cases, those positive cases, because apparently, Texas Department of Health was telling us that they're basically all added together in just one big, one list, and there's no differentiation between those who are entering illegally and people who are here because we live in Texas. And when you have that many people coming across the border, and I'm assuming a lot of positive cases, that's going to tick up that transmission rate, and then you have things like the eviction moratorium to worry about.
Oh no, I've been worried about this from the beginning. That when Biden opened the border and he said on the first day, "Come on in," that our COVID cases would start skyrocketing. And if you'll notice, the national media doesn't ever attribute it to illegal immigration. The fact that these people are being put all over the country, it's having an impact, and it's having, I think, a big impact. They're just not going to cover it. The administration is not going to admit it. They're not going to talk about it. So it's really a lack of transparency. It's a lack of truthfulness. It's a lack of honesty, because the reality is people are going to die because the President of the United States is authorizing this.
And authorizing and not giving a lot of assistance either, except, and my last question, I know that they were really trying to go at lawmakers, people like you and the governor and the lieutenant governor, over the pitch-in from the federal government to test people who are coming across the border, and the governor declined it. He said no, because Texas taxpayers would have to pay up would have to cover the other cost of that. But isn't that kind of a violation of the 10th Amendment and the commandeering and the whole Prince v. United States? They're expecting Texas to fulfill a federal obligation?
That's exactly right. They don't have the right to put those costs on us, to put those responsibilities on us. They are responsible for immigration. They are supposed to be doing it themselves. And then when they try to put that on us, it's clearly, in my opinion, I think you've used the right words, commandeering state resources for federal purposes. It's illegal and unconstitutional.
There you go. Well, hopefully, goodness, we can get some relief from this. It's sad that you all have to not only fight here and try to make it to where people can be protected and you're mitigating transmission, but then you got to fight the federal government literally to make sure that people's health is protected. That's what's insane to me, all in the name of science. Unbelievable. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, good to see you, sir. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Of course. Take care.